Hey guys, I'm John Setzler. Welcome back to Man Cave Meals. Today we're going to fire up the Traeger Timberline 850 and we're going to cook a pizza. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to start out and we're going to make a 24-hour dough. I am borrowing this recipe from my friend Bjorn over in Sweden. And in the video description here, I'm going to give you a link to Bjorn's YouTube page and his Facebook page. You're going to have to check this out. He made this dough. It looked really good, so I'm going to give it a try. And I'm also going to try out my wife's mixer that I've never used before. So we're going to start out here with 500 grams of the Caputo 00 flour. I've got 3 grams of active dry yeast. I've got 10 grams of salt. And I've got just a pinch of sugar. So we're going to turn the mixer on. And give that a little mix. And I'm going to drizzle in 20 grams of extra virgin olive oil. And then we've got 340 grams of water that I'm just going to drizzle in. We're going to let that knead for about 5 minutes or so, 5 to 8 minutes. Okay, we've been going about 5 minutes, so I'm going to turn that off. We're going to take this dough out of this bowl and put it in a greased bowl and let it rest. Okay, I'm going to turn our dough into this greased bowl and I'm going to cover that with a towel, and we're just going to let that rise here on the countertop for about an hour. Okay guys, I've actually been going about an hour and a half here. This doesn't have a whole lot of yeast in it, but I wanted to let it puff up some. So we're going to take this out and get it onto our floured work surface. And I'm going to flip this over a little bit, and I'm just going to kind of loosely shape this into a dough ball, because we're going to split this in two. I'm going to make 2 fairly decent sized pizzas out of this. So I'm going to use my bench knife and we're just going to cut this in half. And I'm going to shape each one of these halves into the typical tight dough ball that we normally do when we're going to make pizza. Just kind of turn it. A little air bubble there on the surface. I'm going to pump that. So when it's nice and tight like that, I'm going to set that one aside, and then we're going to do the second one. And then I'm going to put these into a couple of grease containers. Okay, I've got a couple of tubs here that I use to put the dough in. And I'm just going to put those in there. I'm going to flip it to get it kind of coated on the top. And I'm going to do the same thing for the second one here. We'll toss it in, give it a flip. And then I'm going to put the lids on these guys and toss them in the refrigerator where they will sit for 24 hours. We'll take them out tomorrow afternoon, probably about 2 hours before we're ready to make pizzas. Okay. We are going to make some homemade pizza sauce to go on this pizza that we're going to make, and I'm going to show you the ingredients we're going to use. You want to start out with the absolute best quality tomatoes you can. I've got here a can of real San Marzano tomatoes that we're going to look at. The next thing that's going to go in is 1 clove of garlic, and then I've got salt, sugar, oregano, basil, red pepper flakes, and some olive oil. And I'm going to give you the quantities of all that in the video description here. So let me show you how we're going to put this together. I have taken the tomatoes themselves out of the can and I've left the juice behind. What we're going to do is we're going to use all of these tomatoes, and I'm only going to use about half of the juice that's left in the can. Okay, we're going to start out here in the jar of my blender. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop that clove of garlic in there. Then I'm going to dump in my olive oil. I forgot to tell you about the fish sauce. I've got about 1/4 teaspoon of fish sauce there. Then we're going to put in our salt, our sugar, our dried oregano, our dried basil, and our red pepper flakes. We're basically just going to put everything in there in terms of the seasoning. I'm going to pour in half of the tomato juice that was left behind in that can. And I'm going to put 1 of our whole tomatoes in there to start this process. I'm going to put the lid on, and I am going to pulse this long enough to get that garlic clove nicely minced. That should do the trick. And then I'm going to add the rest of our tomatoes to the jar of the blender. And then I'm only going to pulse this blender about 3 times on low. And that's all we want to do. We don't want to overwork that. And I'm going to take that sauce and put it in the refrigerator and let it sit for a few hours before we use it. If you can do this a day in advance, it's even better. And this sauce will keep in the refrigerator for about a week. I wouldn't keep it any longer than that. This is enough sauce to do quite a few small pizzas with, or a couple of large ones. So if you have any left over, toss it on some pasta. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and set up the Timberline to cook this pizza. I'm going to take the top 2 racks out, cook on the bottom rack. I've got my pizza stone in here because we're going to want to preheat this grill probably for about an hour or so at 500 degrees. So we're going to crank the grill up wide open. So I'm going to turn it on, and as it comes up, I'm going to set the temperature all the way up 500 degrees and hit the ignite button. And like I said, we're going to preheat this grill for about an hour. Okay guys, our grill's preheated, and I've gone ahead and stretched out this pizza crust and got it on my peel ready to go. We're going to ladle on some of this tomato sauce and get it spread out to the edges. And after I get my tomato sauce on, the next thing I like to do is grate on a little bit of fresh parm. I don't go real heavy on that. We just kind of get a dusting that looks about like that. And then I give this guy just a little drizzle of extra virgin olive oil. And then we're going to put on some grated whole milk mozzarella. And then we're going to finish this guy off with some slices of pepperoni. And now it's time to put this bad boy on the Traeger. Okay, our Traeger's running right at 500. Our stone is preheated. So let's drop this bad boy on the pizza peel, and we're going to give it probably about 10 minutes. Okay guys, we've been going here about 18 minutes, and I believe this guy's ready. It's looking pretty good to me, so I'm going to take it off and we'll have a look. Okay guys, this looks perfect to me. It's got a perfect crust on it. I don't know if we can see under there. There's no burning on that. Let me see if I can get down a little lower where I can actually show you that in there. That bottom crust looks perfect. I don't want to break it. I've got just the right amount of crisp on there. It's beautiful. So that's my first pizza on the Timberline. So give this a try. Let me know what you think. Until next time, this is John Setzler with Man Cave Meals.